Now that you've got some of the basics, let's start adding a little formatting to this so you can see a little more about how HTML works. So for example, we could make the word code bold by using the B tag. B for bold, and then, of course, close B for the end of bold. Notice that when I started typing in there, Dreamweaver opened this handy list of HTML code. Let's make afraid italics, and I'll show you that again. So as soon as you type a bracket, this list comes up. Type one letter, and Dreamweaver jumps to the HTML tag it thinks you want. If you hit return, you close it. If you close the bracket, you can finish the tag. If you open the tag at the end and type the /, Dreamweaver assumes you want to close the tag you just created. So even if you're manually writing HTML in Dreamweaver, these code hints can be of great assistance to you. Now, if you're wondering why those didn't come up before, it's because we were working with a text file. Now that this is an HTML file, Dreamweaver recognizes this and offers you this code hint assistance. So let's save the page now, switch back over to the browser where we just viewed our page, and this time let's choose View Reload. On some browsers, this option is called Refresh. Either way, what it does is tell the browser to go back and look at that same HTML page again to see if any changes have been made. So now you can see afraid is italic and code is bold. Alt-Tab or Command-Tab back to Dreamweaver. And now, at the risk of making this a little more complicated than it needs to be, I want to point out another set of tags that also make text bold and italics, the EM tag and the strong tag. So for the most part today, people actually don't use I for italics and B for bold. But they are really useful when you're teaching HTML because they're so intuitive. B means bold, I means italics. Open means start italics, close means stop italics. Very clear instructions. The hypertext markup language. You're essentially marking up this text. But today in modern web standards, instead of I and B, we use M, and therefore close M, for emphasis, and strong in place of bold, and therefore close strong, which generally causes your text to look bold. The idea behind those tags is that they represent emphasis and, well, words that you want to give strength to or bring more attention to on the page. Today, it's preferred to use strong and emphasis over bold and italics because doing so enables the browser and really ultimately the user to determine the best way to format emphasis. So instead of locking someone into using bold or italics, what you're saying is emphasize this word, make this word stand out on the page, and you're really giving some options in the display as to how that should be done. So in theory, a user could say, every time the strong tag shows up, I want the text to be blue, and every time the emphasis tag shows up, I want it to be red. And they could see your text as red and blue instead of italic and bold. For the most part, emphasis and strong show up as italic and bold, but that's some of the thinking behind using tags that are more flexible and give more options to your users. I also show you this because I want you to start understanding that almost always today there's more than one way to write HTML, especially because it has evolved so much over the years from a very simple language to a highly complex one. So there are lots of old tags like bold and italic and lots of new tags like CSS that can perform the same features. For the most part, I want to keep this lesson simple and just give you a few basics. So let's go on to just typing a few more simple tags. Let's put a headline at the top of this. How about HTML is cool? Okay, maybe you wouldn't go that far at this point, but I'll bet you're starting to get the hang of it. So if I wanted to make this a headline, I could use H1 and then close H1. And that's how you make a heading 1 tag around a headline. If you want a subhead or a smaller headline, you might use an H2 tag. And again, Dreamweaver helping me out here with the close tag. All I have to do is type the bracket and the slash, and the H2 appears. Now, one other thing I want to show you that can be a little confusing has to do with spacing in HTML code versus spacing in your web page. If I type a whole bunch of space here on this page, when I go to view this page in the browser, there will be no extra space here at all, at least not caused by the returns that I just added that have no corresponding code. In contrast, if I want a paragraph tag around something to create a paragraph mark, I need to actually type a P tag for paragraph, and the paragraph tag includes a close paragraph. So if I do bracket / bracket, you'll see close paragraph. Now, when I view this in a browser, there will be a hard return at the end of a frayed and a line break before the words of the code. Of course, the strong will be making that code bold. And if I wanted the word anymore to be on a line all by itself, but not have an extra paragraph space, I'd use the break tag. That's the simple BR tag. But here's an exception because there are always exceptions to good rules. The break tag is one of the few tags in HTML that doesn't have a close tag. However, in XHTML and following modern standards, you kind of build the close tag into the tag. So the way you do a break tag today is BR space / close bracket. And that's essentially one tag that just puts a simple line break so it doesn't need a close tag, but gets one built in. Okay, let's save this page and go look at it in a browser. And before we do, make a quick note here. I put a lot of space there in the code. It's not going to show up in the browser. We are going to see some space from the H2 and the H1 tags. Those include line breaks, much like the paragraph tag. We are going to see a line break after the word afraid because of this paragraph tag, even though this is all on one line in the code. And we're going to see a line break with no extra return before the word anymore. Let's see if I'm right. Save the page, switch back to the browser, and choose Reload. Voila! HTML is cool, and it's easy to do heads and subheads, and you do have to pay a little more attention to spacing than you might have realized.